I woke up to the kind of honking that makes your heart jump before your brain's even awake. Not the polite little tap-tap of someone nudging traffic along. No, this was the furious, hold down the horn, I'm losing my mind kind of honking. Groggy and confused, I stumbled to the window and pulled open the blinds. And there it was, a bright red SUV, parked dead center in my driveway like it had been carved into the concrete. Not my car. Not a visitor's. Just an unwelcome, shiny red beast blocking everything. But what really made my stomach drop was the vanity plate. Karen 1. It didn't take long to piece it together. Karen Simmons, the self-appointed queen of our neighborhood. The same woman who once called animal control on my golden retriever for aggressive posture while he was literally asleep. The same woman who'd left printed warnings in everyone's mailbox last Christmas about unauthorized holiday decor. She'd even tried to ban sidewalk chalk because she claimed it was graffiti. And now she had apparently decided that my driveway was community property. Before I could even throw on a pair of jeans, I heard yelling from the street. A man in a delivery uniform was standing outside his van, waving his arms, his face twisted in frustration. He looked up at me like I had all the answers. Sorry, buddy, I thought. I'm just waking up to this circus too. I pulled on some sweatpants, grabbed my keys, and stormed out the front door, fully prepared to have a conversation, well, as civilized as you could get with Karen, which usually meant yelling at a camera while she pretended not to be home. I marched across the street to her house, knocked hard enough to shake her ridiculous seasonal wreath. No answer. I knocked again. Nothing. But I saw the twitch of her curtains, the coward signature move. Fine. Two can play that game. I whipped out my phone, pulled up the number for a towing company, and was about to hit confirm when I heard the click of a lock behind me. I wouldn't do that if I were you, came her voice, syrupy sweet with that artificial cheer she used like a weapon. I turned around, forcing a smile so tight it made my face hurt. There she was, robe-clad, coffee in hand, standing in her doorway like she owned the block. Karen, I said, carefully, you're parked in my driveway. She took a long, deliberate sip of her coffee. I know, she said, as if that settled it. I had company over last night. Needed the space. When you feel like it. My words echoed back at me, absurd even as I spoke them. She shrugged. It's just a driveway, Ethan. It's not like you need it all the time. I blinked. She laughed. That light, condescending, infuriating laugh. And that's when I knew this was only the beginning. I stood there on her porch, my fists clenched so tight my nails dug into my palms. Karen gave me one more smug smile before slowly, deliberately closing her door in my face. The deadbolt clicked with a finality that sent a wave of fury down my spine. I spun on my heel and stormed back across the street, my mind already racing. Reasoning with Karen was like arguing with a brick wall, except the wall smiled at you like you were the crazy one. She didn't care about common sense or decency. She thrived on being untouchable, wielding fake authority like a sword. But if she wanted a battle, she'd get one. Inside, I paced the living room, my golden retriever Cooper lifting his head lazily from the couch as if to ask, "You okay, buddy?" I wasn't. Not even close. I grabbed my phone and called Tyler. He answered on the second ring, his voice groggy but curious. "What's up, man?" I didn't waste time. Karen parked in my driveway. Won't move. She thinks she owns the neighborhood. There was a long pause. Okay, Tyler said, suddenly fully awake. Time for plastic wrap. I laughed, but it came out sharp. You serious? Dead serious. You still have that industrial roll from your failed greenhouse project? I glanced toward the garage. Yeah. Perfect. Tonight, we wrapped that SUV tighter than a Christmas present. It was childish. It was petty. And it was exactly what I needed. The day crawled by. Every time I glanced out the window, that red SUV sat there like a taunt, reflecting the sun in shiny arrogance. Karen didn't even bother to move it. At one point, she stepped out onto her porch with another coffee, caught me looking, and gave me a little wave, smug, slow, like she was daring me to do something. I waited until after midnight. The street was quiet, the air crisp. Tyler showed up wearing a hoodie and carrying snacks like we were teenage pranksters on Halloween. We didn't speak much, just went to work with military precision. The plastic wrap unrolled smoothly, glistening under the streetlights as we circled the SUV. Doors. Windows. Side mirrors. Even the wheels. Layer after layer, until the car looked like an oversized mint trapped in glossy amber. We muffled our laughter as we worked, adrenaline making everything funnier than it should have been. By the time we finished, it was a masterpiece. No damage, no graffiti, nothing illegal. Just an immovable, airtight bubble of inconvenience. We fist-bumped, quietly retreated back to my house, and sat on the porch sipping beers, waiting for morning. At 7:42 a.m., it happened. A high-pitched shriek cut through the neighborhood, followed by the frantic rustling of plastic. Karen was in her driveway, tugging at the wrap with growing panic. She tried slicing it with her keys, but the layers were too thick. She pulled, yanked, twisted, nothing. Finally, she stopped, chest heaving, and her head whipped toward my porch. Her eyes locked onto mine. "You did this," she shrieked. I took a long sip of coffee. "Did what?" Her face twisted with rage. "This isn't funny, Ethan." "I disagree." She stormed across the street, her slippers slapping angrily on the pavement. "I'm calling the cops." I shrugged. "Go ahead. No damage done." Her face turned crimson. She stormed back to her porch, fumbled for her phone, and loudly reported a serious act of vandalism. 15 minutes later, a squad car rolled up. 2 officers stepped out. One took one look at the plastic-wrapped SUV and started laughing. "That's a new one," he said, tipping his hat back. Karen was practically vibrating. "Arrest him." The officer gave me a long look. "You do this?" I kept my face straight. "Who, me? Maybe the wind." The second officer chuckled. "Looks like a pretty creative prank to me." "No harm, no foul." Karen let out a strangled noise somewhere between a scream and a sob. The officers walked away, still shaking their heads, leaving her standing alone in her driveway, fists clenched at her sides. She turned back to me, her voice venomous. "This isn't over." I smiled. "I know." And for the first time, I felt like I was finally ahead. But deep down, I knew Karen wasn't the type to lick her wounds quietly. People like her never did. The next morning, I woke up feeling victorious. I sat on the porch, sipping my coffee, watching as Karen struggled to peel away the layers of plastic like a fly caught in amber. Every tug only made it worse, and the neighborhood had front-row seats. It should have been enough. I should have taken the win and gone on with my life. But I knew better. Karen wasn't the type to take a loss quietly. She was the kind of person who'd burn the whole neighborhood down just to roast one marshmallow. I didn't have to wait long for her retaliation. By mid-afternoon, I heard the unmistakable sound of something crashing outside. I opened my door to find both my trash bins knocked over, garbage strewn across my lawn like a raccoon had gone on a bender. Eggshells, banana peels, yesterday's leftovers, all spread out with deliberate carelessness. But it didn't end there. In the middle of the chaos stood a bright red and white sign staked deep into my front yard. "For sale, cheap. Call for details." And right below the number was Karen's name in bold letters. I ripped the sign out of the ground, my hands shaking with fury. Before I could even process the mess, my phone pinged. A text from an unknown number. "Is your house really for sale? I'd love to schedule a showing." I barely had time to respond before the doorbell rang. A sweet older couple stood on my porch, asking if they could take a tour. I clenched my jaw so tight it hurt. "There's no house for sale," I said, doing my best to sound polite. Over the next hour, more people showed up, all holding printed flyers they claimed they found online. Karen had listed my house on Zillow and Facebook Marketplace, describing it as a cozy fixer-upper with motivated sellers. I stormed across the street and pounded on her door hard enough that I half expected the frame to crack. Her curtains twitched, but she didn't answer. Typical. Cowardice dressed up in passive aggression. I spent the next 2 hours cleaning up the mess in my yard, but just as I was dragging the garbage bins back to the curb, I noticed something else. 2 delivery trucks, one Amazon, one FedEx, both bypassed my house without stopping, even though I had multiple packages out for delivery. Confused, I checked my email and saw notifications marked undeliverable, unsafe address reported. My stomach dropped. Karen had reported my address as abandoned and unsafe, halting all my shipments. She wasn't just playing dirty, she was weaponizing inconvenience. And she wasn't finished. Later that evening, as I tried to relax, another notification popped up in my neighborhood Facebook group. A post from Karen S., HOA representative, complete with a shiny fake logo. "Attention, residents, new community rules effective immediately. No street parking after 7 p.m. No pets over 20 pounds. No unapproved lawn decor. Repeat offenders will be fined." She even attached photos of Cooper, my golden retriever, lounging on my porch with a passive-aggressive caption, "Example of violation, oversized dog not permitted under new guidelines." I could feel my blood boiling as I read through the comments. Some neighbors were confused. Others were furious. And a few were actually mocking her in real time. But the cherry on top came the next morning when I opened my door to find a fresh notice of violation taped to my front window. Failure to remove holiday decor, $150 fine. Immediate compliance required. My wreath had been gone for 2 weeks. But there it was, a fabricated fine, complete with an official-looking letterhead from the HOA that didn't even exist. That was the moment I stopped playing nice. I wasn't just dealing with a petty neighbor anymore. Karen had escalated this into a full-blown campaign of harassment. And if she wanted to play dirty, I was going to play smarter. I sat on my porch that night, the weight of Karen's chaos pressing on me like a heavy stone. But this wasn't just my fight anymore, I could feel it. The neighborhood was simmering. Every absurd notice, every fake regulation, every staged complaint had pushed people closer to the edge. I wasn't the only one who'd had enough. I texted Tyler, "It's time." The plan wasn't about petty revenge anymore. It was strategy. Slow, deliberate, psychological warfare. The kind Karen couldn't trace, couldn't fight directly, and, most importantly, couldn't control. Step 1, gather allies. I started by talking to neighbors I barely knew. Turns out, Karen had left her mark on everyone. Linda Harris had been reported for excessively colorful garden displays. Tom Reed got a citation from her for leaving his recycling bin out an extra hour after pickup. Marjorie Davis, sweet, 80-year-old Marjorie, had her grandkid sidewalk chalk scrubbed off by Karen herself, citing public defacement. Everyone had a story. Some people laughed bitterly. Others clenched their jaws, their eyes burning with old resentment. And one by one, they agreed to help. Step 2, plant the seeds of paranoia. It started small. A single orange traffic cone placed right in the center of Karen's driveway. The next day, her garden gnomes, usually arranged with military precision, were all turned to face the street like tiny plastic sentinels watching her. Her mailbox flag would mysteriously go up, even though she hadn't sent mail. Nothing destructive. Just strange, subtle things that made her question reality. By the fourth day, Karen was visibly rattled. I'd watch from my porch as she paced her yard, eyes darting, checking her bushes like she expected someone to pop out. She adjusted her security cameras twice, angling them higher, then lower, then back again. Her confidence was cracking. Step 3, the masterstroke. Tyler and I spent hours crafting the perfect fake letter, complete with logos, official-sounding legal jargon, and a ridiculous but believable declaration. Due to multiple community complaints, her driveway was now designated as shared overflow parking for all neighborhood residents. We printed copies on professional-grade paper and, in the dead of night, slipped one into her mailbox and scattered identical copies in several neighbors' mailboxes, the ones we knew were in on it. The next morning was a symphony of chaos. By 7:30 a.m., there were 3 cars parked in Karen's driveway. 2 of them belonged to neighbors who had gleefully joined the plan, and the third was a random delivery driver who figured if everyone else was doing it, it must be allowed. Karen's scream echoed down the street, louder than the day of the plastic wrap. She stormed out of her house in slippers and a wrinkled pajama set, hair wild, face red. "What are you doing?" she shrieked at the cars. Linda Harris rolled down her window, feigning innocence. "We got the notice, Karen. Community overflow parking. We thought you'd know." Karen nearly exploded. She stomped in circles, waving the letter in the air like a white flag of surrender turned into a weapon. She stormed into her house, undoubtedly to call the city or the police. But there was nothing she could do. The letter looked official. There was no record to dispute because the HOA didn't exist. It was her own illusion turned against her. By the afternoon, the entire neighborhood was buzzing. People whispered, laughed, and posted photos in the community Facebook group. One clever neighbor captioned a shot of the chaos with "overflowing with kindness." Karen didn't leave her house for the rest of the day. For the first time, her car was absent from my driveway, and her silence was louder than any of her complaints had ever been. But even as I enjoyed the rare quiet, I knew it wouldn't last. Karen wasn't defeated. She was cornered, and that made her more dangerous than ever. I thought the driveway prank would be the final blow, but Karen wasn't done. A few days later, strange cars began appearing on our street. Well-dressed people with clipboards went door to door, speaking in hushed, serious tones. I flagged one of them down as they left Tom Reed's porch. The man gave me a tight-lipped smile and said they were conducting a community petition regarding neighborhood safety and property regulations. I didn't need him to say her name, I already knew. Karen had brought in reinforcements, trying to reassert control over a neighborhood that had turned against her. Later that day, my phone buzzed with a message from Tyler. A screenshot of a Facebook post from Karen's HOA representative. It read, "Important community notice, due to ongoing disturbances, I am proposing new neighborhood guidelines to ensure respect and order. If you care about the integrity of our community, please sign the petition." The comments section was on fire. Some neighbors were confused, others roasted her with memes and GIFs. But what sealed her fate was a comment from Marjorie Davis, "Karen, stop pretending you're in charge. There's no HOA. This is a neighborhood, not a dictatorship." The next morning, someone, to this day I don't know who, printed flyers listing Karen's greatest hits, her complaints, her fake rules, her absurd attempts at control. The flyers were taped to mailboxes, slipped under doors, even pinned to the park's community board. The entire neighborhood erupted in laughter and disbelief. Karen's petition fell apart by lunchtime. Her last grasp at power crumbled under the weight of her own nonsense. For the first time in years, she was silent. No fake notices. No smug remarks. No more surveillance cameras being adjusted every hour. A few days later, I saw her in her yard, quietly moving garden furniture. She glanced at me and hesitated before speaking. "I'm moving," she said softly. I raised an eyebrow. "No petition to have me evicted first?" She gave a tired shrug. "Got a better offer." Whether she was running or really moving on didn't matter. What mattered was that peace was finally restored. My driveway had never looked so blissfully empty. But as I sat on my porch, watching the moving truck pull away, I couldn't help but wonder. Have you ever felt powerless against HOA, or Karen, rules? Share your experiences below. Let's see who had it worse.